Mind over muscle.
We've all cheered on Superman as he's fought various powerful enemies over the years. However, his oldest arch-nemesis is a man with no superpowers, but with the power of manipulation and intelligence. He's different from other villains in that he doesn't want to kill his enemy, but rather outsmart him, and that makes him fascinating and also terrifying. Lex's journey from an extraordinarily intelligent child to the President of the United States is no less than a roller coaster ride. He's been a mad scientist, a ruthless businessman, and a greedy politician driven by selfish motives. Intriguingly, in some alternate universes, he's even Superman's best friend. Unbelievable. There's a lot to learn about Lex Luthor, so let's get ready to explore his entire comic history. Before we jump into things, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons to support our efforts, as we want to keep bringing you plenty of marvelous videos in the future. Now, let's get right into the beginning of this iconic supervillain's life story. Lex Luthor's Golden Age debut. Lex Luthor made his Golden Age debut in Action Comics against the Man of Steel as a criminal mastermind who desires only power. He was depicted with red hair, but when mistaken for the Ultra-Humanite, a supervillain and Superman's prime nemesis at the time, he was portrayed as a bald, crazed scientist. He came up with a grand scheme of pushing the entire European continent into the dark abyss of war and destruction. To attain this goal, he chose small countries such as Tehran and Galonia. He attempted to sabotage a peace conference using his scientific prowess, but faced fierce resistance, ultimately suffering defeat at the hands of Superman. During the early period of his career, Luthor opted for terrorism to establish his dominance over the world, but each of his attempts at this were rendered futile due to Superman. You might remember Dan Rivers, a villain from the 1940s, was the first criminal to use kryptonite against Superman. Luthor learned about Superman's weakness from him and exposed it publicly. This caused trouble for Kal-El, who would go on to be known as the Earth 2 Superman. Lex Luthor was already a complex character. He wasn't ashamed of his evil. In fact, he openly admitted it. As we can see in Superboy's 85th issue, Abraham Lincoln is a great man in his eyes. The 164th issue of the Superman comic shows him as a hero for saving millions of innocent lives in a dying world. In the latter part of Lex's career, he became aware of the multiverse. To conquer Earth 3, he got aid from his Earth 1 counterpart and Ultraman, the prime villain of Earth 3. However, ironically, they were defeated by Earth 3's only superhero, Alexander Luthor. During the Crisis on Infinite Earths, in which the DC multiverse was erased and the origins of many DC heroes were rebooted, another villain named Brainiac recruited Alexei as the field commander of his forces. Alexei asserted to Brainiac that he was better than his other counterpart. However, he turned out to be wrong. As a result, Brainiac decomposed Alexei Luthor, and now Lex remained the only version of Luthor present. At the end of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Alexei Luthor was erased from existence and his memories were wiped out on New Earth. Transformation during the Silver Age. Born into a farming family, Lex lived with his sister, Lena, and his parents in Smallville, Kansas. Despite growing up in a humble family, he never acquired that trait. The shackles of his ordinary life couldn't bind his ambitions. He always aspired to become the greatest scientist in the world. In his teenage years, Lex came across the knowledge of Smallville's own hero named Superboy. His interest piqued, and soon he became the greatest fan of the hometown hero. Life surprised Lex with an unexpected sight one fine day while he was working in a field with a tractor. Superboy's limp form caught Lex's attention. He realized that the young Kryptonian had come into close contact with the lethal green kryptonite. To help his hero, Lex moved the kryptonite to a safe distance using his tractor. Superboy then visited Lex's workshop where he found a shrine built in his honor. Impressed by his fans' dedication and kindness, the Boy of Steel built him a new laboratory to support his ambition of becoming a scientist. Friendship with Superboy turned out to be beneficial for Lex, as the latter provided him with rare chemicals for his experiments. The genius created a non-sentient protoplasmic entity from these chemicals and used it as a template to create an antidote for kryptonite poisoning. He wished to gift this antidote to Superboy, but in his excitement, he accidentally spilled it, which resulted in a serious fire. Fortunately, Superboy was passing by when he noticed the accident. He used his superpowers and extinguished the fire. However, in his attempt to do so, he accidentally mixed several chemicals. Various strange gases formed, affecting Lex's head. They destroyed his hair, leaving him completely and permanently bald. When Lex regained his senses and found his lab destroyed, along with his appearance, he blamed Superboy for it in a fit of rage. He accused him of jealousy and planning this destruction intentionally. That moment marked the beginning beginning of a deadly rivalry between the two former friends. Superboy countered Lex's every attack and sent him to the Smallville Juvenile Detention Center. However, this growing animosity and Lex's obsession with defeating the superhero began to worry his parents. They planned to move out of Smallville and also changed their family name to Thorl for the sake of their daughter, Lena. They didn't want to raise her anywhere near her evil brother. During the Crisis on Infinite Earths, he allied with Brainiac, a robotic villain who collected species from across the galaxy. At the same time, his Earth 2 counterpart, Alexi Luthor, was killed because he challenged Lex and Brainiac's ambitions of dominating the world. Supergirl and the Flash lost their lives in an attempt to destroy the Anti-Monitor as the evil force resurfaced. To deal with it, Lex and the remaining villains temporarily sided with the heroes. Although Lex survived the crisis, like many characters, he was then eradicated and replaced by a technically new being. In the universe that followed, this being was composed of Luthor's previous versions, except Earth 3's hero, Alexander Luthor. This new individual was a business mogul and a very dangerous person.
We want to weaponize this material.
As a deterrent? A silver bullet to keep in reserve to use against the Kryptonians so the day does not—
The rise of Lex Luthor as a ruthless corporate tycoon. After a childhood filled with hardships, life took Lex to a new age cradle of modernity, Metropolis. This would become Lex's new home, where he established LexCorp utilizing his brilliance. The company's growth boomed under his leadership, from airlines to infrastructure, and it soon became a dominant force in Metropolis. The company's financial success earned Lex political power and also helped him become the most powerful man in the city. He built a clean reputation for himself, but with the arrival of Superman, his facade broke. The superhero openly accused him of being involved in criminal activities. These accusations cost LexCorp a significant amount, tarnishing its image worldwide. Meanwhile, Lex used a ring made of kryptonite to dissuade personal attacks from the Man of Steel, and this constant exposure gave him cancer. The disease cost him his hand, and a robotic prosthetic replaced it. Now, not only were Lex's business and image under threat, his health also took a significant hit due to Superman. Lex Luthor 2 and the Clone Deception. Suffering from the threat from Superman and his deteriorating health, Lex's situation worsened beyond repair. After the condition slipped out of his control, Lex faked his death. He used that opportunity to transfer his brain into a healthy clone body and assumed the identity of his own heir, Lex Luthor 2. With a new name, Lex also acquired a new accent, a long beard, and red hair. He convinced the world that he wasn't carved out of the same slate as his father. He was different and could never commit any crime. He then convinced the Matrix version of Supergirl to be his personal bodyguard and also the hero of Metropolis. He created a security team, privately owned by his company, LexCorp, known as Lex Troopers or Team Luthor. When Doomsday, a cosmic killing machine, attacked Metropolis, he ended up killing Superman. To fight the danger of Doomsday, Lex sent his Lex Troopers and Supergirl. After Superman's death, Lex saw an opportunity to attain his goals. He planned to replace the deceased superhero with a clone, but he failed to clone all of Superman's DNA, so he used some of his own and gave that clone powers similar to Superman's. A teenage vigilante group, the Newsboy Legion, released a Superman clone as a teenager before it could mature into an adult. The duplicate took up Superman's mantle and a neat leather jacket and became Superboy until the original Superman returned. At some point, Lois Lane exposed Luthor's criminal activities. Finally leaving the mask of goodness behind, he activated explosives across Metropolis. With these blasts, the city was destroyed. Superman and other heroes reconstructed it, but the feud between them and Lex Luthor would continue.
Ooh, a threat. But this old dog still has a few teeth.
President Luthor's political reign. Luthor faced another challenge in his political career. The voice of detractors in the Fourth Estate began to rise against him. If he didn't crush it quickly, it would become a movement that would shake the foundations of his empire. To silence these voices, he purchased the city's premier news outlet, the Daily Planet, and then sold it to the newspaper's editor, Perry White, based on certain conditions. Now, without threat of exposure, Luthor decided to run for the position of United States President with only one ambition: to take down Superman. Using his intellect, Luthor established healthy connections with Russia and Atlantis and rallied troops for the invasion of the ultimate conquering force, Imperiex, who contained the power of the Big Bang and could destroy and recreate entire universes using this power. While allegedly serving the nation's interests, unbeknownst to the world, Lex allied with Apocalypse, the dark planet ruled by Darkseid behind the curtains. He convinced Darkseid to side with Earth during the war against Imperiex. As compensation for this this favor, Luthor made Joker unleash Doomsday against Superman as a product demonstration before handing Doomsday to Darkseid. After Lois discovered that Luthor was aware of ImperieX's threat in advance, she shared this information and her research with Clark, who published a biting report confronting Luthor, yet it did not significantly damage the cunning politician. He saw the opportunity to provoke the public against Superman when a kryptonite asteroid was discovered heading towards Earth. He sent heroes such as Black Lightning, Captain Atom, John Stewart, Starfire, and Power Girl to arrest Superman, but with Batman's aid, this scheme would fail.
It was your ego. Being a hero was too important to you. You're as much responsible.
True colors and fall from power. Luthor was so obsessed with defeating Superman that he used an apocalyptic battlesuit, a variant combination of the super steroid Venom and liquid synthetic green kryptonite, to fight against him. However, he downplayed the side effects of Venom. He showed his true nature amid the madness. Another betrayal hit Luthor like a lightning bolt when he discovered that the acting CEO of his company, LexCorp, Talia Head, had sold his company's valuables to the Wayne Foundation. You can imagine how much that bothered him. Following that incident, Luthor went underground. Pete Ross, his vice president, looked after the presidency. During this time of isolation, Luthor exposed his secret. Superboy was a hybrid of Luthor's and Superman's DNA, as revealed by sending a Cadmus Laboratories genetic file to Robin under the fake name Snapdragon. 1 year later, and countdown, Luthor's name was cleared of 120 criminal charges, such as first-degree murder and malfeasance, a year after the events of the Infinite Crisis. But his involvement in the New Year's Eve massacre had ruined his image in public. He launched the Everyman Project, where he gave ordinary people superpowers using advanced genetic technology to build a world that didn't need Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. On New Year's Eve, the Everyman Project heroes joined a massive public celebration where Luthor deactivated the powers of many participants during the fight to test loyalty and eliminate the quote-unquote unworthy subjects. It resulted in the tragic deaths of these participants. Due to the evil Dr. Sivana's manipulations and machinations, Lex lost control of his beloved company. LexCorp would fall into the hands of Lana Lang, Clark Kent's high school sweetheart. To say Lex was furious would be an understatement. His wrath was directed at Clark Kent in particular for publishing a series of articles in the Daily Planet exposing his schemes and secrets. After an angry mob humiliated Lex outside the courthouse, he made a vow to have revenge not only on Clark Kent, but also all of Metropolis. While burning in the fire of vengeance, Lex pushed his efforts and created a formidable stockpile of kryptonite to fight against Superman. He also abducted the supervillains, the Kryptonite Man and Metallo. Using their powers, he energized a Kryptonian battleship that could be controlled with a rare Sunstone crystal. Although Superman bravely destroyed the battleship and recovered the Sunstone crystal, he failed to apprehend the mastermind behind this scheme. In his next attempt at regaining control of the situation, Luthor sent Bizarro after the newly introduced Superboy, but that plan too failed when Superman defeated the creature. Unfazed by his successive defeats, Luthor created a new revenge squad to fight a greater threat, the invasion of Kryptonians under the leadership of General Zod, who was exiled to the Phantom Zone after attempting to conquer Krypton. But years later, when he escaped, he shifted his focus and targeted Superman and his adopted planet, Earth. In the JLA series, together with Cheetah 3 and Joker, Luthor assembled a new Injustice League to destroy the Justice League. During this same period, he also created the third Blockbuster and the third Shaggy Man, additions to his dangerous assets. Leader on the Prison Planet. Lex Luthor played a significant role in the countdown to Final Crisis tie-in event, especially in the Salvation Run storyline. After his Injustice League was defeated, he was sent to the Prison Planet, where he quickly gained control of the inmates. However, Gorilla Grodd, a telepathic, super-intelligent anthropomorphic gorilla, and the Joker became Luthor's competition, convincing about half of the villains to join them. He even had to fight with the Joker. However, Desaad, Darkseid's chief counselor, sent his parademons to attack the villains. After surviving this attack, Luthor used a makeshift teleporter to leave the prison planet. The captive metahumans, including Warp, Thunder, and Lightning, Neutron, Plasmus, and Heatmonger, secretly powered this teleporter. When Thunder accused Luthor of being a monster, the villain claimed he was actually the hero, and those who had sent them to the prison were the real monsters. After he successfully escaped the prison planet, Lex set the teleporter to self-destruct, killing the remaining parademons and his living batteries. This decision of his, again, highlighted his selfishness. Final Crisis and the Secret Society. In the 21st issue of Justice League of America, we see Luthor, still obsessed with his ambition, associating with the Secret Society of Supervillains. Established by Libra, this society has featured top-notch villains over the years, battling against the Secret Six, lone heroes, and the Justice League. The purpose behind the foundation of this society was to strike a balance between good and evil. Luthor maneuvered his way into the inner circle of the society. Lex had always been a calculating and ego-driven man who wasn't pleased with Libra's blind allegiance to Darkseid. He wanted Libra to prove his strength. Hence, Clayface was sent by Libra to destroy the Daily Planet building. After Lex discovered that Libra was in fact Darkseid's prophet, he attacked him, but soon found himself face to face with Darkseid's stormtroopers known as the Justifiers. Now, Luthor was at Libra's mercy, who asked him to choose if he would side with Darkseid or live the life of a mindless slave. In the 5th issue of Final Crisis, Lex was selected to lead the rearguard action at Bloodhaven against the heroes by Libra. During the following events, Libra realized that the mole in the Society of Supervillains was none other than Lex. Yet, coupled with Dr. Sivana, a mad and evil genius, Lex wounded Libra and overturned the anti-life equation that guided the Justifiers. Lex's infiltration into the secret society and ultimate betrayal reveals his cunning trait and desperation for survival as he relentlessly pursues his goals. New Krypton and the Brainiac Alliance. A time came when Luthor was punished and imprisoned for his criminal activities. However, instead of sending him to jail, General Sam Lane, Lois Lane's dad, who was involved with the Suicide Squad and harbored great hatred for Kryptonians, assigned him to work on the secretive Project 7734 as punishment. Under this project, Luthor had access to the knowledge stored in Brainiac, who was defeated and captured by Superman. Luthor was chosen for this task due to his high intelligence and experience working with Brainiac. In the New Krypton storyline, Superman liberated Kandor, a Kryptonian city, and thousands of Kryptonians gained powers under Earth's yellow sun. They formed their own planet called New Krypton, which orbited opposite Earth's sun. These radical events set panic among Earth's leaders, and Project 7734 was one of the ways to neutralize the Kryptonian threat. Reactron and Metallo were taken to Kandor as punishment for acting against the Kryptonians. Around this time, Luthor managed to access Brainiac's brain successfully and use it to reactivate his Kaluan ship, which was also held in Kandor. He was acting according to his own selfish schemes. The Kaluans were the race that produced Brainiac. They were green-skinned humanoids that were far more intelligent than humans. Brainiac's robots attacked the Kryptonians, and Metallo took advantage of the situation. He killed their captors, along with Zor-El and Cyborg Superman, using their kryptonite hearts. After Luthor successfully operated on Brainiac to use him against the Kryptonians, he was given Doomsday's corpse for study. While he was winning the government's trust, Lex was waiting for the right opportunity. When it arrived, he used Brainiac's connection to his ship to kill the soldiers who were keeping a watch on him. Brainiac broke free of Luthor's control and forced him to escape with him in his ship. This event marked the beginning of Luthor and Brainiac's alliance, in which the latter promised Lex the entire Earth after he was finished with it. Blackest Night, Orange Lantern Lex. During the Blackest Night event, an epic cosmic war broke out between the different Lantern Corps. A specific emotion powered each of these corps. The Orange Lantern Corps represented greed or avarice. Ganthet, a powerful Green Lantern leader, and Owen summoned a ring from all the Corps' leaders. These rings sought out suitable hosts. For the Orange Ring, Lex Luthor was an obvious choice after it sensed the immense greed for power in his heart, making him an ideal candidate. Up until that point, Larfleeze was the only known being to possess the power of avarice and was the only member of the Orange Lantern Corps, as he was too greedy to share his powers. But after the Orange Ring chose Lex, he became an Orange Lantern. He was overwhelmed by avarice and became incredibly powerful, and also more paranoid, selfish, and power-hungry than ever before. The effect of the Orange Ring dominated Lex's actions to the point where he stole Scarecrow's yellow power ring to use it for himself. He also stole the orange power battery from Larfleeze to attain more power, but Wonder Woman was quick to stop him by using her weapon, the Lasso of Truth. Wonder Woman's weapon also compelled him to reveal the truth, and he confessed his deepest secret, that all he had ever wished in life was to become Superman. After the defeat of the zombie Black Lanterns, the deceased Black Lantern superhumans regained life. At this point, Larfleeze succeeded in removing Lex's orange ring, leaving him in his natural human form. Brightest Day, the Black Ring Saga. After the events of the new Krypton story, Luthor was visiting Midway City with Nava Mendelsohn, his new personal assistant and bodyguard. Deathstroke and his team of Titans were assigned to attack and kill Lex. To save their lives, Nava and Lex sought refuge inside the sewers. Unfortunately, Nava was shot afterwards. Tables turned when it was revealed that it was Lex himself who paid the Titans to carry out this fake assassination attempt. Another jaw-dropping moment occurs when Nava's wounds heal and her true identity is revealed. Facade, a shapeshifter, replaced her during this fake attack. She was assigned to be close to Luthor so she could kill him. Osiris and Deathstroke defeated her, and later, Luthor performed some experiments on her. Lex was playing multiple fronts simultaneously. He was searching for Black Lantern energy while using clones of Doomsday to attack the members of the Superman family to distract Earth's heroes. In this task, he got help from Lois Lane's robotic duplicate. At the same time, he came face-to-face with Brainiac in space while trying to alter the last of the Black Lantern energy. Luthor launched a surprise attack on Brainiac, incapacitating him temporarily. Loisbot asked for Luthor's apology, but her fate would be written by Lex. He altered the remaining 4 black spheres and opened a Phantom Zone portal. It released a giant and powerful being to kill all life in the universe. To engage this monster on a mental plane of existence, Lex stabbed Loisbot's head and infected himself with Kryptonian technology. While fighting with the creature, a peculiar event happened. His mental essence and body merged with the creature, and he came to know that it wanted to escape the anger and grief of the Phantom Zone prisoners. Equipped with his new powers, Lex tried to provoke Superman by forcing him to feel human emotions, but when he learned that the most tragic and defining moment of Superman's life was the death of his father, he was enraged. He could not accept the fact that his enemy had a human father and shared a warm bond that he could mourn over his loss, unlike his dysfunctional relationship with his own father. Mr. Mind was aiding in the search for Luthor. He and Superman realized that the creature could allow Lex to establish peace and contentment within the universe. All Lex had to do was not harm any other being. To Superman's disappointment, Lex's heart was too bitter towards him to let go of his hatred. Lex paid the price for his choice and lost control over the creature before departing for another part of the universe. Eventually, he was defeated when he fell into one of the Phantom Zone holes the creature had created. The New 52 and Lex's early villainy. In the DC Comics New 52 reboot, Lex Luthor appeared in a more modern and technologically driven form. He was hired by the US military to take down Superman, who they saw as an alien threat. His version of LexCorp was actively involved in government and military projects, earning contracts by designing advanced security systems and weapons. Lex presented himself as a patriot and guardian of Earth, but his underlying motives stemmed from jealousy and hatred towards the superhero. General Sam Lane hired him to capture Superman using his intelligence. He laid out a trap using a train for Superman, which our superhero managed to stop barely. But in those efforts, he was left unconscious. It was easy for Lex to capture him and put him through various experiments and tests. Meanwhile, Lex managed to contact a powerful alien creature named the Collector of Worlds through unknown means. The creature instructed him to say the word Krypton to Superman. Lex followed these instructions, triggering intense physical and emotional reactions in Superman, as Krypton was the name of his home planet, which had been destroyed. This version of Superman didn't know much about Krypton as of yet, so this was a blow for him. The Collector arrived on Earth and captured a part of Metropolis called New Troy, where many crucial characters from the universe lived, including Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor. Together, they all took shelter in Glenn Morgan's luxurious hotel. Once inside the hotel, Lex used a secret communication device and called the Collector. Now, prepare for the twist. It's revealed that Luthor made a secret deal with the alien creature. He was acting as an informant with the codename Icarus, sending information on Glenn Morgan's criminal activities to Clark Kent, alias Superman. The only intention behind the whole charade was to stir chaos and manipulate the events to his benefit. When General Sam Lane discovered Lex's shady actions, he fired him from all projects under military control. But that didn't demotivate the supervillain of our story. He no longer needed anyone's aid, having used 2 kryptonite rocks he had stolen and begun his own personal project. He devised a grand scheme and used Raymond Jensen as the subject of his experiments. He used the stolen kryptonite rocks to create Kryptonite Man, intending to use him as a weapon against Superman. However, as is often the case with Luthor, things went south, and his experiment failed to gain the expected outcome. What he perceived as an asset became unstable and more of a threat than a useful weapon. Yet, he used Kryptonite Man against Superman. The radiation emanating from Kryptonite Man Superman weakened Superman. Lex studied Superman's biology and tried to prove he wasn't trustworthy to humans. Although Superman managed to escape and expose Lex to the public, the latter received military and public support for attempting to stop the alien with superpowers. The Hybrid and Lex's first confrontation. A year prior, Lex had arranged an illegal arms trade with the fictional country known as Kurak. He was not only cunning, but also calculating in his every action. He foresaw Superman's interference and was prepared to deal with it in advance. He had all the weapons covered with nanite technology and kryptonite to obtain Superman's DNA samples. He planned to use these samples to create a monster called Hybrid, which would have Superman's genetic structure. Superman defeated the Hybrid with his ice breath before discovering that the monster was attacking Metropolis, infecting citizens with a virus. Superman himself carried the contagious virus after getting infected by the poison applied to the war machines Luthor smuggled. The infected victims were controlled by the virus and wreaked havoc across Metropolis. The grand scheme was intended to prove to the world that Superman was a dangerous alien infecting innocents while only Lex could save them from the danger. Geared up with his warsuit powered by Apocalypton and Kryptonian technology, Luthor fought the Hybrid and defeated it before Superman arrived. He successfully planted doubt in the public's mind against the superhero. This confrontation between the supervillain and Kal-El, where Lex was eventually defeated, became chronologically the first fight between the two. These events showcased Lex's moral corruption and also Superman's vulnerability. Forever Evil and Justice League Redemption. After the Trinity War ended, a new war broke out between the Justice League of America, the Justice League Dark, and the Justice League, resulting in the defeat of the Justice League at the hands of the Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate was an evil alternate universe version of the Justice League from Earth 3, and they came to conquer Prime Earth after the Justice League disappeared into the Firestorm Matrix created by the Crime Syndicate. Of course, chaos ensued across the world. In one early incident, a helicopter crashed into LexCorp Tower. Luthor caught sight of a figure flying and crashing into the building, and he assumed it was Superman. However, it was the Crime Syndicate's Ultraman, Superman's evil doppelganger from Earth 3, and he was powered by kryptonite. He took Lex's supply, crushed it up, and inhaled it. Luthor's stars aligned in his favor as he also discovered the identity of Nightwing, Dick Grayson. He also came to know that Ultraman pushed the moon in front of the sun, but while doing so, he was harmed by the sun's rays. You must be wondering where the hell Superman was when the world needed him, right? Well, Lex wondered the same. Lex explored the powerless LexCorp building and came across one of his experiments, Subject B0, also known as Bizarro. However, the experiment was incomplete and needed at least 5 more years to achieve the desired results. Lex saw an opportunity to be the great hero he had always wanted to be by saving the Earth from the evil of the Crime Syndicate, and for that, he would need Bizarro. He released him and tested his obedience. Satisfied with Bizarro's work, Lex then teamed up with other villains, including Black Adam, Black Manta, and Captain Cold, to fight against the Crime Syndicate. Luthor advanced towards a Wayne Enterprises storage facility along with his teammates when he noticed Bizarro was reluctant to walk ahead because of his fear of the dark. Lex comforted Bizarro and narrated his own experience where he had lost his sister before learning to never submit to the fear of failure. The story inspired Bizarro, and the team finally reached its destination. Little did they know that they would be welcomed by their enemies, Catwoman and Batman. A fight broke out, which was then interrupted by Power Ring, the Crime Syndicate's version of Green Lantern, and his group of villains who attacked the facility. To handle this new and unforeseen threat, Batman and Luthor had to team up, later joined by Deathstroke and Sinestro. When the team finally reached the remains of the destroyed Justice League Watchtower, they found only Dick Grayson locked up inside the murder room, a device built to imprison Doomsday. The room had no escape, and a bomb was connected to Dick's heart. If his heart stopped beating, the bomb would not detonate. Luthor made a risky choice and decided to blast Batman from behind and suffocate Dick to death. The bomb would stop the moment Dick's heart stopped working. Luthor saved everyone just in time, but Batman attacked him, thinking he had killed Dick Grayson. Lex revealed that he had given Grayson a pill to temporarily stop the functioning of his heart before reviving him. The Crime Syndicate was shown keeping a hooded figure locked up who was eventually revealed to be Alexander Luthor, the Earth 3 version of Lex. He had an interesting ability. He could steal other people's powers after he killed them. After uttering the magic word Mazaz, the opposite of Shazam, he could transform himself into a monster-like form with the stolen powers. He was freed and began attacking people to steal their powers. When he attacked Lex, Bizarro jumped in front of the danger to save his creator. Sadly, Alexander killed the childlike Bizarro and stole his powers. This saddened Lex greatly, as he had formed a bond like that of a father and child with his creation. In fury, he killed Alexander, saving everyone's life. It was then that Lex Luthor found a severely injured Superman on the verge of death due to a small piece of kryptonite left in his brain by Atomica, the crime syndicate's version of the Atom. Lex removed that piece of kryptonite, saving Superman's life. Yup, you heard that right. Lex Luthor, the arch nemesis of Superman, saved his life. It was kind of a big day for Lex. He saved the world. But don't be fooled by his acts of kindness. He began digging into the Justice League members and discovered that Bruce Wayne was Batman by tracing his connection with Nightwing. Once disliked by the public, Lex was now their hero after contributing to saving Superman and Earth. He used this opportunity to penetrate the Justice League, securing a place for himself on the team. But that only infuriated Superman. He didn't trust Lex. However, he could do little to oppose while Lex built a new watchtower for the Justice League and recruited Shazam and a former villain, Captain Cold, onto the team. Lex remained a part of the team until DC Rebirth rebooted the universe thanks to Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen universe. Although he was still conniving, he found some measure of redemption on the team and even put a big Superman S on his armor after the death of the New 52 Superman. Post-Rebirth, of course, Lex is back to his villainous ways. Lex Luthor's most iconic film appearances. Lex Luthor is one of the most iconic villains ever created by DC Comics, and thus he appears in multiple films. The 1950 release Atom Man vs. Superman first featured Lex Luthor. He was played by actor Lyle Talbot, who had previously played James Gordon in Batman and Robin. In 1978, 1980, and 1987, director Richard Donner released Superman, Superman 2, and Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, respectively. Actor Gene Hackman portrayed Lex's character in all three films. Actor Kevin Spacey took on the iconic character in the fifth film in the Superman franchise, Superman Returns, which was a continuation of the previous four films. His take on the character was more straightforward than Gene Hackman's and was more serious in tone. In Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which was a sequel to the 2013 film Man of Steel by Zack Snyder, actor Jesse Eisenberg played Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor in animated series and television. Filmation, known for its low-budget productions, operated during the 1960s and 70s when several cartoons featuring numerous DC characters were broadcast. Jackson Beck acted as a voice artist for Lex's character in The Batman-Superman Hour, The New Adventures of Superman, and The Superman-Aquaman Hour of Adventure. In the Super Friends cartoon series from 1973, based on the Justice League comic books, Stan Jones was the voice of Lex. Another series, Superman, was released in 1988, in which Michael Bell voiced Luthor. Unfortunately, the show was cancelled after just a few episodes. In the live-action show Superboy, which ran from 1988 to 1992, Sherman Howard and Scott Wells played Luthor's character. While Scott acted in the first season, Sherman was seen in the last 3 seasons of the show. In this series, Lex is portrayed as a gifted scientist and the arch-enemy of Superboy. In Lois and Clark from 1993, John Shea played Luthor. Although Luthor committed suicide in the first season, Shea made cameo appearances as Luthor in later seasons. Voiced by Clancy Brown, the voice of Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob, Luthor appeared as an antagonist in the animated series Superman between 1996 and 2000. This version of Luthor was calculating, cold, and powerful, with great influence and power over Metropolis. However, he wasn't portrayed as a politician, but rather the owner of LexCorp, a company specializing in weaponry and technology. Along with Lex, the show also popularized Mercy Graves, Luthor's bodyguard, who later debuted in the comics as well. In 2001, Clancy Brown again became the voice of Lex in DCAU's Justice League and in the 2004 follow-up Justice League Unlimited. Lex carried Superman's only weakness, kryptonite, in his pocket for years, hoping to use it to defeat his enemy. However, this proximity would eventually result in kryptonite poisoning, which was fatal. Luthor was told he didn't have long to live, but this only made him more dangerous. After he was arrested for Superman's attempted murder, he teamed up with the Ultra-Humanite and other rogue villains aiming to destroy the Justice League. However, his efforts ultimately turned futile. In order to live with his kryptonite poisoning, Luthor would develop a special suit. In the episode A Better World, an alternate universe was shown where things took a dark turn. Lex became the president of the United States on that planet, and his manipulative political practices put numerous innocent lives under threat. During one confrontation, he killed Earth's Flash, Wally West. This enraged the rest of the Justice League, and Superman killed Luthor on live live TV as an act of revenge. After realizing that freedom and democracy were just too risky, the Justice League from this alternate universe traveled to the show's main version of Earth, renaming themselves the Justice Lords, to enforce peace through control and fear. They became ruthless dictators with good intentions. To avoid repeating what happened on their Earth, they locked up the real Justice League and planned to take over this Earth to stop Luthor. Interestingly, the real Justice League allied with Lex, who used his advanced technology to aid in defeating the Justice Lords. Ultimately, freedom was restored on the original Earth. For his efforts, Lex was pardoned from prison. However, his ambitions knew no bounds. He set up future conflicts which are evident in Justice League Unlimited. In this series, we learn about Project Cadmus, a secret government project that aimed to stop the Justice League if they went rogue. This fear arose after Superman attacked Earth under the influence of Darkseid's mind control ability in Superman the Animated Series. Luthor pretended to support this project financially while secretly working on his agenda against Superman. In Superman the Animated Series, Brainiac secretly captured Luthor and planted pieces of his programming inside him. When the Justice League tried to stop Project Cadmus, Brainiac suddenly emerged with Lex, and the two fused, forming a dangerous Lex-Brainiac hybrid. It planned to destroy Earth and collect all of its data. The Flash defeated the hybrid and saved the world, while Luthor was arrested. After the destruction of the hybrid, Lex began experiencing withdrawal symptoms and missed the connection he once shared with Brainiac, but that also made him obsessed with the idea of finding Brainiac again. This madness led him to the site where Brainiac was destroyed, but instead, Lex ended up reviving Darkseid, an evil god who once controlled Superman's mind. Darkseid's hunger for world dominance again rose to the surface, and to combat him, Luthor and his Injustice League joined forces with the Justice League. A battle began when Lex noticed Metron, a mysterious godlike entity who knows everything, watching over them. Lex demanded what he knew, and he was taken to the Source Wall at the edge of the universe, a place where ultimate knowledge was hidden. Lex discovered the anti-life equation there. Meanwhile, Superman was unable to stand up to Darkseid and was defeated. He was about to be killed when Luthor arrived and offered to share the anti-life equation with Darkseid, a secret the villain had been searching for a long time. After Darkseid accepted the offer, he disappeared along with Lex, and the Earth was saved. However, it's not clear what happened to Luthor or Darkseid after this incident. Lex Luthor made another appearance in the 2007 animated film Superman Doomsday, where he was voiced by James Marsters, who played Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The film had an interesting plotline where Superman supposedly died after a fight with Doomsday. Lex created multiple clones of his enemy, and one of them took on the role of Superman, but in a more deadly form. In the film Superman Batman Public Enemies, released in 2009, Lex appeared as President of the United States to stop the two superheroes from preventing a giant kryptonite meteor from colliding with Earth. The 2010 animated film Crisis on Two Earths gave us a new version of Lex, as Chris Noth lent his voice to the villain. In this version, Lex was the only surviving member and also the leader of the Justice League of his world. This league was killed by the crime syndicate, so Lex traveled to an alternate reality to gain help against the syndicate. He developed an armored suit that granted him abilities such as increased strength, energy blasts, flight, durability, and force fields. Based on Grant Morrison's comic book, All-Star Superman was released in 2011. In this animated film, Lex was sentenced to death as punishment for his evil crimes against humanity. However, he succeeded in creating powers similar to Superman's for himself through a serum. Anthony LaPaglia became the voice of Lex in this movie. If you think we're getting close to the end of this iconic villain's TV appearances, then you're completely wrong. Buckle up, because this is going to be a long ride. In 2013, we once more met Lex Luthor in the animated movie Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. In this version, Lex was a part of Deathstroke's team and traveled through the remains of Paris to find Aquaman's base. In the end, Aquaman and his forces attacked Lex's ship and killed everyone on board. Steve Bloom was the voice of Luthor in this film. In JLA Adventures: Trapped in Time, he's voiced by Fred Tatasciore, who famously voices the Hulk. Most of you are probably familiar with Smallville, one of the longest-running superhero TV shows in history. Michael Rosenbaum played Lex for several seasons in this show. Lex was 21 years old when he met Clark Kent, who was 16, during an accident. Clark had recently discovered his alien origin and used his superpowers for the first time to save Lex's life. From that moment, the duo was inseparable, although both of their fathers disapproved of the bond. However, over the years, the two friends began drifting apart over their differing ethical values. Lex, who always valued honesty as the most valuable virtue, could not bear the fact that Clark continually repeatedly lied to him about his true identity and went to great lengths to conceal his powers. Clark, on the other hand, valued his privacy above all else. When Lex put his secret out and his family in jeopardy in his quest to find the truth, the last nail was put in the coffin of their friendship. In the present timeline, Lex was severely attacked by the prototype Justice League and Green Arrow, but instead of his death, he was shown barely holding on to life with the support of various machines. It was implied that Brainiac was keeping him alive. Lord Zod had also taken an interest in Lex before. He took over Luthor's body against his will to pursue and enlist him in his mission to destroy Kal-El and conquer Earth, but Lex refused that proposal. Michael Rosenbaum's presentation of Lex's character was more refreshing than previous versions. In the series finale, his memories of his immoral activities were erased by his half-sister, Luthessa Lena Luthor. The story then gives us a 7-year time jump, and Luthor appears as the President of the United States in his iconic white suit and black gloves. This popular villain's next appearance was as the prime antagonist in the second half of the 4th season of Supergirl. The character was portrayed by John Cryer. Luthor made his appearance in Young Justice as the CEO of LexCorp in Metropolis. Disguised as a successful and honest businessman, he ran illegal arms trades and other shady businesses. He was the first chairman and founder of the Cadmus Project and began working on Project KR and Project Match. When Kid Flash, Aqualad, and Robin broke into Cadmus to investigate a suspicious fire, they were captured. Luthor planned to clone these heroes, but they broke free with Project KR, also known as Superboy, a clone of Superman. Luthor was chosen to settle peace between South and North Wallachia and resolve their long-lasting conflict, but Lex wasn't neutral. He secretly shook hands with Ra's al Ghul and the Light, manipulating the talks. They planned to let the League of Shadows attack the summit and force both parties to sign peace under Lex's influence. When that attack occurred, Mercy, Aqualad, and Red Arrow intervened to prevent it. The peace treaty was signed along with multiple LexCorp contracts as per Lex's plan. He then contacted Superboy using an ultrasound frequency in Superman's absence and asked him to meet in East Potomac Park. He revealed to Superboy that he was now the new director of Cadmus, the facility that had created Superboy. He also told him that there was another superclone. Superboy was intrigued and decided to investigate the matter further, but in reality, Lex was already aware of the second clone named Match. He laid a trap for Superboy to make him physically and emotionally dependent on him. Although Superboy eventually realized the villain's master plan, it was too late. Lex exposed the truth he had been carrying for a long time, which shook Superboy. He disclosed that he was the donor of Superboy's human DNA and that Superman would never accept him based on that knowledge. Out of rage, Superboy was about to attack Lex, but the cunning villain escaped using a code word, Red Sun. Superboy was flooded with Red Sun radiation, which weakens Kryptonians. Lex Luthor, along with the rest of the Light, were eventually defeated. However, he would also appear in Justice League Throne of Atlantis and Justice League Gods and Monsters, which are in different continuities. Oof, now you know why he's considered one of the most popular and iconic villains DC's ever created. He's appeared in nearly every medium that Superman has, and that means he's no joke. Lex Luthor's role in video games. In Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, Luthor appears in his current war suit. He's also featured in DC Universe Online, where he plays a central role in the story. Brainiac approached him to eradicate Superman and continue his quest for information. He offered Lex the power to rule the Earth in the future, but in this attempt, Lex was severely injured and lost his leg, eye, and left arm. Since he was a valuable asset for Brainiac, the wounded villain was turned into a cyborg to save his life. His lost body parts were replaced with cybernetic implants. Lex used his disability to earn public sympathy and turn their opinion against Superman. After a deadly battle between the villains and the heroes, Luthor managed to kill Superman using a kryptonite-headed spear, but his happiness soon washed away when he realized that Brainiac never intended to keep his end of the bargain. Together with the wounded Batman, Luthor traveled to the Fortress of Solitude, where a time machine was located in an attempt to defeat Brainiac. However, Luthor betrayed Batman. Brainiac's forces launched an attack on the fortress. Infuriated, Batman swore vengeance while dealing with the robots. Meanwhile, Luthor slipped into the past using the time machine. He informed the Justice League about the impending apocalypse. He also told them about his preparations to stop Brainiac, which included releasing exobites on Earth and creating new villains and superheroes, the same ones that DC Universe Online's players would play as. But how could Lex Luthor be so kind? His every action was inspired by evil motives, and this was no exception. The League remained unaware of his underlying motive to be the ultimate victor after after things improve. The storyline of DC Universe Online is as interesting as the previous ones. Estranged by his peers and exploited by his parents, Lex grew up as a sociopath obsessed with using his great intellect and skills to gain influence and power. He didn't care about the suffering and pain he caused in his pursuit of this. Superman became the prime obstacle in his path after the superhero publicly accused him of being involved in criminal activities. In the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us, Luthor was a supposed friend of Superman. However, Lex was secretly working for Batman and the insurgency with a plan to save the original Batman who was trapped on Stryker's Island. He then fixed the kryptonite gun to kill Superman. Deathstroke destroyed the Watchtower, the headquarters of the Justice League, after which Luthor lured Superman to the Hall of Justice to kill him, but at the last moment, Lex's suit malfunctioned and he lost his shot. Superman crashed down on his friend at the optimum speed, killing him. At the end of the game, we see a cyborg adorning Lex's grave with flowers. Lex Luthor in the new Superman movie Explored. 2025's Superman is directed by James Gunn, continuing the saga that has had a wide impact on pop culture. The movie's already out, and the fan community is buzzing about Lex Luthor's role in the new DC universe. Nicholas Hoult, who previously played Hank McCoy in the X-Men universe, is set to take on the role. The movie will portray Superman as completely independent of any organization or government, unlike other metahumans we've seen so far. Lex will be a prime antagonist in the story, intending to prevent Superman from interfering in his matters of interest. In the trailer, we saw Lois Lane interviewing Superman, questioning him about his actions in a foreign war. Lois points out that Superman has illegally entered the country and is acting as a U.S. representative, although he's not affiliated with any private entity or government. This angers Superman, and when Lois asks him if he had consulted with the president before participating in the war, Lex Luthor's smiling face greets us at the mention. This underlines the concept of a war between two fictional countries, Jarhanpur and Boravia, as a central point of the movie's plot. Luthor has already appeared as the President of the United States in many previous adaptations. This same idea has been explored in other universes in the DC multiverse. In the Red Sun universe, as a president, Luthor was responsible for the golden era in US history. He manipulated global events that ultimately led to Superman's death. In the DC animated universe's alternate timeline, Superman killed the president in the Oval Office after realizing that Lex had the power to initiate a nuclear war. So what does the trailer actually suggest? Lex might be a powerful businessman, CEO of Luthor Corp, with the power to assign the engineer to attack Superman. He's also powerful enough to find the Fortress of Solitude and detain Metamorpho, a powerful metahuman. The trailer also births theories about Lex's connection to Boravia's mysterious hammer. And then came shocking news that created more buzz among fans when James Gunn himself erased the theory of presidentship by stating on Threads that Lex is not the president in his new movie. Gunn's comment also confirms that the DCU will focus on Superman and already established heroes and villains in this storyline, rather than skipping major events for the sake of a major character like Lex Luthor. Except for a few scenes in the Smallville TV show featuring Michael Rosenbaum's version of Lex, the idea of the supervillain as president has never been fully explored in any past live-action Superman media. Since Superman is going to be the first film in a new franchise, the time is not ripe to explore such a mature idea so early on. Although the president's identity remains a secret, one thing we can surely assume is that Lex would do everything in his power to eradicate Superman. Still, the latter would rise victorious after defeating his enemy in typical DC fashion. Lex's failure will inspire future storylines similar to those we've seen in the comic. Marvelous verdict! Whether you admit it or not, Lex Luthor is definitely one of the most popular DC villains who never fails to charm with his incredible intelligence and boundless ambition. He doesn't need fangs, claws, or magical powers. His mind is his sharpest weapon, and his envy and hatred towards Superman is his fuel. He's also a symbol of greed and pride, showcasing that even a noble idea like saving humanity from aliens can take a dark turn when your ego gets involved. Many actors have brought the character to life in different adaptations, but a fan favorite is Michael Rosenbaum's version from the Smallville series, who still hasn't lost his glory even after decades. We're sure you're excited about the new Superman movie and to explore the latest strategies the supervillain will use to try to defeat his invincible nemesis. But that's all we got for you for today's video. Let us know your favorite part of the new movie and what makes Lex Luthor such a popular villain in the comments down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.